And can you guys see me? You can see me in the corner? Okay. All right. I think we'll go ahead and get started. I want to welcome you to the Fall 2023 Community Webinar for CureSHANK. We have a ton to tell you about today, and I ask that you bear with me because this time it is a lot that's just going to be me telling it to you. And so I'm going to do my best to make it interesting and not drone on, but be very informative. And we're really, really, really excited to tell you about everything that's been going on. Just so that you can see here, we have an agenda here. So tonight we're going to have a little bit of an introduction. Then we're going to give some updates on the 3 research grants that we were raising money for in May in our Raising for Research fundraiser. And then we're going to have a bunch of other science updates, including what our CureSHANK Consortium is doing. And then finally, we have some miscellaneous different things to tell you about how to get involved, about different projects that we're starting that you might want to check out. So that'll be sort of like a little hodgepodge there at the end. So for an introduction, I know most of you know who we are. I'm going to do this really quickly, just for anybody that's new. CureSHANK is a volunteer army of parents whose children are living with the disastrous symptoms of Phelan-McDermid syndrome. If you are watching this, you most likely know just how devastating this disorder can be. And we are determined to accelerate the development of treatments for this disorder. So then the question is, how are we going to do that? Or how are we doing that? And so our mission is to accelerate the development of treatments for Phelan-McDermid syndrome. CureSHANK, we are not ourselves sitting here in a lab developing the treatments. We are trying to facilitate it happening much more quickly than it would without us in the mix. So what we are charged with doing is bridging what's called the translational research gap. There's lots of science over on one side where, like basic science about the genes that are involved and everything, especially the SHANK3 gene. But you can know a lot about it without having done the necessary science to get you to the other side so that you can have successful clinical trials for that can try to really help our kids. So how are we going to do that? We are identifying and then funding projects that are overcoming barriers to that, to drug development that is successful. And we're also helping coordinate between scientists to improve efficiency, right? Because if we get everybody together in a room who weren't otherwise going to meet, then, we are speeding things along. In the same way, if we can identify, I think it would be easier for everybody if we just knew this, right? And we can target that and we can fund that project. And then that can help everybody because it might be something that no one on their own would have funded. So you can look at this kind of like as a bridge here. Okay, you've got the scientists here, and then you've got the happy people over here who have a treatment for their kid. And we are trying to bridge from the basic research through to late phase clinical trials and actually FDA approval for some treatments. And so what goes in between is drug discovery and design, preclinical development, and early phase clinical trials. And it's these two over here that we are primarily at CureSHANK working on. So, sorry about that. We wanted to try to give you a sneak peek of our new website, and I'm going to see if this is going to work. I was having issues when in the normal presenter mode for PowerPoint with getting links to work. So if this doesn't work, it's not the end of the world, but we will see if it seems like, okay, it might not let me do it. We might have to just go back and share that with you later. Okay, one thing I wanted to announce before we get into the real meat of this webinar is that we still have some Seaver dinner tickets to this Seaver celebration that's honoring Alex Kolivzon. It's a fundraiser, and we have some tickets because we are supporters of the Seaver Center, and none of us can go. And so we've had some people express interest in them, but we have 10 tickets, and I think we still have at least 5, maybe more. So please do contact contact us at connect@CureSHANK.org if you are interested, and you could go on Thursday, November 16th. It should be a good time. It's a cocktail reception, basically. All right, so moving on to the more substantive stuff of our presentation. We here are going to give you some updates, like I mentioned, on the Raising for Research projects that we had a fundraiser for in May 2003. So we had a very successful first real fundraiser that we did. We raised $90,000 that was able to go, people were able to designate which of these 3 studies that they wanted to have their funds go to. And so this 90,000 is split between them. That doesn't cover the full cost of these, but it went a long way towards really helping. So the first one was this Autism Science Foundation sleep study. And that is, I'm going to show you here. It's right here on this little map we have of all of our projects. You see these ones with the check marks. Those are the ones that in March we mentioned that I think it was in March when we had our spring webinar, that we have completed these projects all the way. And then we have these other projects, and we're kind of showing generally where they fall in this translational research gap. So one of them right here, I know the writing is small, but I'm going to show you more in a minute, is the Autism Science Foundation Sleep Measurement Study. We contributed $10,000 to this study that's going on in order to make sure that Phelan-McDermid syndrome patients can be a part of the study. What this study is it's essentially a validation of a tool to measure sleep, because as you probably are aware, a lot of our patient community has really bad sleep problems, and but it's also very, very difficult to get them to comply with testing in a sleep study center. And so what this is we're joining a study that was already going on, where they're testing this kind of headband. It says a novel device. It's basically a new kind of device for measuring sleep. It's like an EEG, not quite as detailed as a full EEG we might have been involved with, but enough to measure sleep. And it's basically something that the child or the adult could wear at home. And we're trying to see, like, can it be tolerated in our population? The general study is for involves children with profound autism, which does describe most of our population, or a great deal of it anyway. However, we actually do not, like, if you are interested in participating in this, your child does not have to have an autism diagnosis. They only have to be, there are some other requirements that we're having a little trouble filling, but they do not have to have an autism diagnosis, but they do need to be between the ages of 12 and 18, relatively close to Boston, Massachusetts. They can reimburse for some travel, but not like for people flying and staying in hotels and stuff like that. You must have some sort of sleep disturbances, and you can't have any uncontrolled seizures. This is the flyer here, and you can see it. Also, we've posted about it on social media and stuff. I'm putting this here because they kind of said, like, oh, you can't have any seizures, but what they told us is really what it means is you can't be having ongoing uncontrolled seizures. If your child takes a medication and is fine, then it's that's not a problem. So if you are interested in this, there's some communication information here, but we're also we sent it out in our newsletter, and the easiest thing, if you can't find any information you're looking for, is always to just email us at connect@CureSHANK.org. So we are actively recruiting for this. Please spread the word to anybody else, if you know people that are in the Boston area, and would be able to maybe fit this description. That would be really great, because we're really hoping to get a cohort of Phelan-McDermid individuals, teenagers, I guess, participating in this Autism Science Foundation study. Okay, so the next one that we were raising money for at our May fundraiser was the Developmental Regression in Phelan-McDermid Syndrome Research Grant. So that is right here on our little map here that we sort of have. And this is all CureSHANK. This is purely CureSHANK funded, and not a joint effort with a different organization. And so for this one, and I wish I had been able to play this video for you, but I don't think it's going to work. Oh wait, maybe it will. Hang on.
You're so silly. Want to try feeling? You're gonna swallow it, or you're gonna keep it in your mouth? Yay! Good job, buddy. Good. Good. Looking. Good. He's looking. Good. Up here, Jim.
There you go. Well done.
Good job, buddy. Can you put that silverware away where it belongs? Good job. Where does the spoon go? Where does the spoon go? No, try again. The spoon go. You have to use your eyes. You have to use your eyes to look. Good job. Oh.
I apologize that I didn't introduce that video. I was not expecting it to actually work and play. But obviously that video is one of our videos about regression. And, I know that that is such a common occurrence to so many of us. I mean, I guess I always figure people know who I am. I didn't even introduce myself at the beginning of this webinar. I'm Talia Emery Silva, and my son Asa has Phelan-McDermid syndrome. He is 8, and these stories are, I know, all too common, and it's definitely a story that we have shared as well. And so this is why we are funding one of our big research grants is the Developmental Regression in Phelan-McDermid Syndrome Research Grant. We've committed $125,000 to this. And like you saw in the video, it says there's no medical explanation. And we probably should say that actually, there's no known medical explanation. Right now, there's a bunch of hypotheses, but like nobody can just point to it and say, oh, well, that's why, your child used to be able to do this and now they can't, or they don't remember who you are. And so we are taking this very seriously. The approach that we have taken with this is we have reached out to a new scientific advisor that we have brought on board. His name is Eric Hoffman, and he has a background in, I'm trying to find right where it says, he has a PhD in molecular, cellular, and developmental biology, and he has I mean, I can't even get into his entire resume. You could check it out on our website, but he's very, very impressive. And he is helping to lead us going the direction of pursuing the role of immunobiology in Phelan-McDermid syndrome patients. We are essentially in the process of doing what's called a landscape analysis of PMS immunological profiles, meaning we are looking at sort of like, like what does it look like across the entire, across the spectrum, what's already there in the literature, what is known about the immune system, and, what things, like, do we want to know, what things are known. It's a general line of inquiry, but basically this research grant is going the direction of trying to understand the problems with immune issues being probably our best guess so far at why this is happening. And so that is the status of this particular project right now. Our final research grant that we were raising money for in May was the Epilepsy and Phelan-McDermid syndrome study. And this goes here, and this one, depending on how on the direction it goes, it could be more preclinical, or it could be more in the drug discovery and design category. But this is another one, a totally CureSHANK research grant, and we are really, really excited to tell you about that one, because that's the one we've made the most progress on. So on September 27th, just this past week, we had a big meeting in Boston called Defining a Roadmap for SHANK3 Related Epilepsy Research. And we know that this is so important to so many people in the community, because so many people have epilepsy, and also we don't know, like none of us knows if our kid currently is fine, if they're going to be the next one to start having really big problems with seizures. So I am going to, for a moment, turn it over to Paulina Rychenkova. She is CureSHANK's secretary, and she and Geraldine Bliss, the president, were there, and she's going to tell you all about it.
Thank you so much, Talia. I want to say that that Geraldine Bliss really drove the organization of this meeting. It was her brainchild, and she worked very closely with the Developmental, the SHANK Consortium, led by Mustafa Sahin. And so what I'm going to tell you a little bit about the goals of the meeting, what we did during the time that we all got together, and a few highlights and key takeaways, and then I'll ask for Geraldine to weigh in with her comments afterwards. As Talia mentioned, this is CureSHANK's effort to identify opportunities for us to fund research, whether it's some basic research or some clinical and preclinical research that would allow us to understand better how epilepsy plays out in Phelan-McDermid syndrome. So CureSHANK funded this meeting. The meeting goals are outlined here. They were twofold. The first goal was to identify the key gaps and needs and challenges that hinder progress in understanding epilepsy and Phelan-McDermid syndrome. And the second goal was to develop a set of research priorities and recommendations that could create a roadmap for CureSHANK and other organizations to potentially fund. The meeting co-chairs were Mustafa Sahin from Boston Children's Hospital, Jimmy Holder from Baylor College of Medicine, and Liz Berry-Kravis from Rush. The agenda briefly summarized on the right. It was a very productive, almost a full day meeting that was attended by over 24 researchers. The researchers were both basic researchers from academic research centers, as well as clinicians, practicing clinicians who work with patients who have epilepsy, Phelan-McDermid syndrome patients who have epilepsy. So we kicked off the meeting by sharing family experiences, and we are very thankful to these individuals who either participated in person to share their family experiences with epilepsy and Phelan-McDermid syndrome, or actually recorded a video testimony that was shared with all the participants in the meeting. It was really important to hear directly from the families who are living through these difficult challenges. We then heard from Jimmy Holder, who provided a very comprehensive clinical overview of what is known about cases and instances of epilepsy, prevalence of epilepsy, the types of epilepsy that our children experience. The basic science overview was provided by Dr. Buxbaum from Mount Sinai, Seaboard Center at Mount Sinai. And then we split up, all the participants in the meeting split up for about 2 hours each into 2 groups. One group tackled clinical gaps and needs and challenges, and the other group tackled the basic science gaps, needs, and challenges. We then reconvened and shared what the discussions concluded with each other, or one another. The basic scientists and the clinical scientists could then ask each other questions that may have come up during those brainstorming discussions. And then ultimately we coalesced around kind of what the next steps are, and started working towards setting those research priorities. Next slide, please. I wanted to share with you some of the key takeaways from the meeting. By no means this is an exhaustive list. There's a lot more to work through and digest from those discussions, which we are actively doing together with the co-chairs and some of the other participants of the meeting, because ultimately what we would like to do as the next step is for CureSHANK to develop a specific request for proposal that would go out to potential applicants, and we would fund that project with the $125,000 grant. So some of the gaps that were identified, and these are combined basic science and clinical gaps, include gaps in consistent and repeatable and reliable 2D cellular or organoid type models and animal models of epilepsy and Phelan-McDermid syndrome. We currently do not have reliable models at any level that spontaneously display seizures or epilepsy activity in Phelan-McDermid syndrome. It's important to have model systems to study any neurobiological disorder, and therefore, for us to understand epilepsy better, the mechanisms underlying epilepsy and Phelan-McDermid syndrome, we really need to identify models that are effective for this. Another gap is a detailed and in-depth knowledge of the SHANK3 gene. The scientists have a fairly decent understanding of the gene, but still there are significant gaps in that. And the reason it's important is because when companies start thinking about different approaches to treatments that are maybe more in the realm of gene therapy or mRNA type therapy or RNA type therapy, understanding every part of the gene is really, really significant. And there's some gaps in that. Another gap on the basic research side was really understanding the circuit phenotype, and what that means is it's epilepsy and seizure disorder does not really happen at an individual neuron level. It happens at the level of neuronal circuitry. So understanding the interplay between excitatory synapses, inhibitory synapses, and various other cells is really key for understanding epilepsy. And so we're still seeing there's a gap in that understanding that still exists. On the clinical side of epilepsy, some of the gaps that were highlighted were the need for a better natural history of epilepsy and Phelan-McDermid syndrome that includes onset, age of onset, types of seizures, the types of treatments that have been employed and have been effective or ineffective, maybe trying to capture some behavioral or other events that may have led to seizure development, or something that maybe at the time didn't seem significant, but in retrospect was probably indicative of seizures that would develop in the near future. Another gap is trying to understand why do some individuals with Phelan-McDermid syndrome ultimately develop seizures and epilepsy, and some do not. And another gap that we'll conclude here, and again, I want to highlight that this is not an exhaustive list, but another important gap on the clinical side is trying to ascertain whether there are any differences in brain structures between individuals with Phelan-McDermid syndrome who have epilepsy from those who do not. And as I mentioned, the next step for us is to really digest all the discussions and kind of review the gaps that were identified and come up with a well-formulated request for proposal. And at this point, I'd like to see if Geraldine would like to make any comments.
Put me on the spot here. I think, there's been an incredible wealth of research on SHANK3 and on Phelan-McDermid syndrome over nearly the last 20 years. And most of it has really been focused on things like behavior and learning in Phelan-McDermid syndrome, not on epilepsy. And indeed, it likely stems from the fact that much of the research on Phelan-McDermid syndrome has been funded through pots of money that are set aside for autism-associated research. And we've had the good fortune of our field benefiting from that. And now we kind of need to work intentionally to attract funding from the National Institute of Neurological Disorders, which typically funds epilepsy research. We only have one NINDS funded research study that's ever been conducted. And so we need to see many more of those kinds of projects funded by NINDS. So our hope is that our initial funding, our $125,000 grant, will sort of serve as a seed grant so that our research community can go to the NINDS with good data and be more successful in applying for grants from the NINDS related to epilepsy.
Thank you. And with that, we will hand it back over to Talia. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. And if it's not clear already, I am not the person with the most scientific knowledge here. And so, but we do have people who are more knowledgeable, obviously, Geraldine and Paulina. So I encourage you, if you did have some questions about this, and also if you have questions about anything else, please feel free to fill it out or in the Q&A. And I think that we will probably have some time to answer if anybody has any questions. And obviously, I maybe should have started this by saying that, we take the epilepsy study so seriously because it is, as most of you probably know, the biggest or the most visible cause of premature deaths in Phelan-McDermid syndrome, and and it's so devastating that we just thought that we really need to start to tackle the connection between SHANK3 haploinsufficiency, not having enough SHANK3, and the horrible epilepsy that some of our population experiences. Okay, so we're going to move on to some other science updates that we have to give you. So this is section 3 of our webinar. Okay, so what I'm going to start with is a very brief biomarkers and outcome measures refresher. Because it's really important to understand what those terms are. And I know many of you do already know, but I'm just going to go through it really quickly. Okay, so what is a biomarker? A biomarker is a characteristic, or for our purposes anyway, of the human body that can be measured. So heart rate, blood pressure, lab work, those are all sorts of things that are biomarkers, and there's many more. And these can be used in many ways. You could help you to identify a population for a study, even like a genetic situation is a biomarker, right? So it would be like, okay, we're looking for people with this variant. It can also be used to monitor therapeutic response if it's something that can change, right? Like, so it would be like, do we have, like higher levels of a certain kind of blood cell in your blood after doing a certain treatment. It can also be used to identify side effects. Is it something that happens that's an unintended consequence of a treatment? And then, and then, you know, for our purposes, biomarkers are really important in helping to discover more effective therapeutics or ways to measure therapeutics that, you know, basically, as you guys most likely know, in Phelan-McDermid syndrome, if we, for example, had a treatment where now people's brains are producing more SHANK3 proteins, we can't be subjecting our kids and our loved ones to like ongoing brain biopsies to just test that, right? And so we are looking for, is there something that can tell us, okay, well, this is going on in the brain because this other thing is happening that we can measure that is not as invasive. So that is kind of what we're talking about in this context for biomarkers. And similarly, outcome measures are a tool that are used to assess a patient's current status. So like, you know, those questionnaires that you have to fill out at the doctor's office that, you know, I know a lot of times I'm just like, you know, if it's a developmental questionnaire, no. Those kind of things are outcome measures. It could be a patient reported, it could be caregiver reported, it could be a clinical observation by somebody observing. So it's not like really something so much in your body, like measuring something in your body, but it's more observational. And those are very useful in things like a treatment for Phelan-McDermid syndrome, because what we are looking for is kind of like, you know, improvements that you would have to, like the kind of improvements that we're looking for, right? We're not just looking to see like, oh, you know, they have, now their blood has this, you know, correct ratio of this kind of cell to this kind of cell or something like that. Here we're wanting to see, like, are they improving in communication? Are they improving in their comprehension? Are they you know, seeming to have better balance, you know, different things like that. And so so outcome measures can be very useful, but they have to be designed in such a way that they are not too subjective, right? Because like we've all probably tried that thing. Oh, we gave the supplement to our kid and like maybe they're a little bit happier, or like, you know, but that's not quite precise enough for what we're trying to accomplish here. So the reason that a lot of our projects that we're going to be talking about here relate to biomarkers and outcome measures is because the potential treatments must be measurable. And that is important, not only because it's good science, but also because when a company is seeking approval from the FDA for to run a clinical trial, they have to explain how are they going to measure the success or failure of their potential treatment. They can't just go in and say, we're going to try this and see what happens. They have to say, you know, we expect that we will see such and such improvement on these specific metrics. And those are the things that we don't really have as much of as we would like in Phelan-McDermid syndrome, of ways to provide those kinds of measurements. And also this is why the involvement of the PMS patient community is so crucial, because you know, we are not going to be developing biomarkers if we are not having our population donating biosamples. It's going to be difficult to develop outcome measures like assessments if we don't participate in, you know, like in when somebody is trying to validate a new tool to, you know, to measure progress, let's say in communication, like we're about to talk about in a minute. Also, both of those things for biomarkers and outcome measure discovery, you know, that is helped to be made possible by natural history studies. And then obviously, of course, patient-focused drug development also depends on us communicating what kinds of improvements would be meaningful for our families. like so many of you guys did when you showed up at the ELPFDD meeting in November of last year, almost a year ago now. So our community has done a great job of participating, but it's also important to keep participating. It's not like once we've done something that, oh, there's nothing else to be done. There's always, great opportunities to participate and to help. So the first update I wanted to give you that has to do with biomarkers and outcome measures is an update on the CureSHANK Consortium. The full name of the CureSHANK Consortium is the CureSHANK Biomarkers and Outcome Measures Consortium. And unfortunately, our wonderful program director, Trish Davidson, was not able to be here tonight, but she had given me some materials, and I'm going to go over them just super quick. In case anybody is not familiar, what our consortium is a pre-competitive consortium. So what does that mean? So it means that it's a collaboration of two or more companies that are like in the same industry, like pharmaceuticals, let's say in our case, and they're working together for a mutual benefit. So they're going to be addressing a shared challenge that doesn't really affect their direct competition with one another. And so this way, you're finding projects. The goal of our consortium is to find projects that these companies can work on together, where it's like, this just benefits everybody. And so there's no reason not to pool resources in order to make it happen. So our purpose for the consortium is to basically accelerate the path again to successful clinical trials by working together to discover biomarkers and to create outcome measures that will then be able to be used by these companies and others and other researchers to measure progress as we are developing treatments, or as they are developing treatments for Phelan-McDermid syndrome. We can tackle a shared obstacle, create a universal tool that everybody can use to measure progress. The idea here is to speed things up beyond what would happen with all of these companies going it alone. So the big update of our consortium, unfortunately, with companies and like legal agreements and everything, it is a slow going process, but we are making a lot of progress. 4 companies have finally gotten through all of their legal reviews and have signed. We have several other companies that are in the process of signing or considering signing. And the subject of the first consortium project has also been determined. It is going to be some of the details remain to be seen, but it is going to be a landscape analysis of existing outcome measures. This was began to be planned on September 19th, just less than a month ago, and the next meeting is scheduled for November. So a landscape analysis, remember I mentioned before, is where you're kind of like looking at the whole field of research that has already been done, what is out there. And so we're basically, before you try to figure out what outcome measures do we need, you need to figure out what is out there, what is working, what's not working. And that is basically going to be the purpose of this project. And you can see right here on our little map, we're following through on our projects that we've told you that we're going to be working on. That's right here, outcome measure development. And we have dedicated basically half of our $500,000 commitment to this. And we hope soon to be working on the biomarker development side of things. Okay, so then 2 other science updates. The first is about the COMBINEDBrain Biorepository Roadshow. I always want to say biodepository, and so I have to think before I speak. So I think I've been told that when I played a video before that you guys like couldn't hear the music or something, so it might not make sense for me to play this video. I'm going to just skip ahead to the main goal here is this. This is a well, actually, here I'm going to show you this slide first. So CureSHANK is a member of a different consortium called COMBINEDBrain, and it is a consortium of over 60 patient advocacy groups for rare genetic neurodevelopmental disorders. And so they had the idea that, you know, one big obstacle to collecting biosamples from patient populations is that everybody lives all over the place. And so it's really hard, especially if all you're, you know, traveling for is for like, you know, a finger prick for your blood and like, you know, a urine sample. You're not going to be able to travel a long distance to get there. And we're trying to get, you know, like basically, I think that, well, okay, let me rephrase. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So what COMBINEDBrain had the idea to do is to say, we have all these different organizations that are part of our group, and a lot of them are having a conference. And so why don't we have a program where at each of these conferences that are participating, we're going to send a team out that's going to be qualified to take these samples, because there's a little bit of a complicated process. Like it's not as simple as just like, you know, draw the blood or take the urine sample and then stick it in a cooler. There's some things that have to be done right there. So they're sending a team to each of these sites. And so we have been advertising this. The goal of this, what they're calling the Biorepository Roadshow, is to get 20 samples from each disease community. And that can be not only people with the disorder, but they're also collecting samples of non-affected siblings. And so we have been promoting this. We're about halfway through all of the locations, but we still need some more. We have 7 of them complete out of the 20. We have 5 that are scheduled upcoming. And we are definitely still looking for people to help us to reach our goal of 20. So now I'm going to show you, these are the remaining locations where you will be able to get, or to give samples. Again, we have information about this on our website and also on our social media, but you can always ask us if you would like to get more information about this as well by emailing connect@cureshank.org. Also, if you'd like to take a screenshot of this, go right ahead so that you can have this information. If you can get to San Antonio or to Miami, Orlando, Washington, D.C., Denver, Mercer Island, Washington, or L.A. On any of these dates, there should be opportunities to donate biosamples for this project. Okay, we have one final science update. So, you know, that COMBINEDBrain one is all about biosamples, which would be used for biomarker research that would be available basically to people all over the world. We're switching gears now to talk about the ORCA project validation, which is a project that has been ongoing. The ORCA is an outcome measure. So the goal of the ORCA is to assess the communication ability of individuals with neurodevelopmental disorders that significantly impact verbal speech. So I'm sure that those of you who are parents and caregivers have had the experience of filling out like a communication questionnaire about your child. And it's like, there are ways that your child communicates, but it's not like the assessment can really detect them. Because our children are functioning at like such a low level verbally. And so this is a problem across neurodevelopmental disorders. So the ORCA has been validated for Angelman syndrome and Rett syndrome. We're in the process of validating it for Phelan-McDermid syndrome. And in 2024, there's first going to be some research that's done with a small group of families to make sure that some of the revisions that have been done have addressed concerns. And then later, we're going to need to have a wide range of families' participation required, because if we can get this validated for Phelan-McDermid syndrome, then that's something that can be used by companies if they are going to be doing a clinical trial. They can tell the FDA, this is going to be one of the things that we're going to be measuring, if that's what that treatment that company is developing is going to be doing. Okay, I'm trying not to go too fast, but I at the same time, I want to respect everybody's time. So I just wanted to point out, This ORCA validation right here is another one of our projects that we told you we had back in March, and it's another way that we're trying to fill this translational research funding gap. Okay, so a few things here at the end about how to get involved, stay informed, and just some miscellaneous information. So the first thing I wanted to tell you about is the CureSHANK Research Scholarship MVC Awards, which we have given to 3 lovely young women who have been very valuable in helping with the ELPFDD meeting. Sam Els and Amy Ursiti, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, both helped out a great deal fielding calls and emails during the ELPFDD. And then Luciano Gizzo has basically summarized the Voice of the Patient report from the ELPFDD meeting into a publication that we're going to be able to get published, and then that will be discoverable by people who are looking for that information. And so we have given them some scholarship money and created this little award, and you know, it's always exciting to have young people getting involved, and we just wanted to share that with you. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about PMS Awareness Day. So we are just really excited to share your posts about Phelan-McDermid syndrome for PMS Awareness Day as it's coming up. We're already in October. All you need to do is if you tag at CureSHANK, and if you use the hashtags PMSAD and then Phelan-McDermid life, ideally, because that's one that we're trying to use, not just for Awareness Day, but in general, then we will see those tags and we will reshare your posts. And then we're also going to be entering anybody who does this, we're going to be entering it into a drawing for some CureSHANK merch that we have. We also have made some graphics, which will be available on social media and on our website very soon. We're just finalizing it. And you are welcome to use them. You do not have to use them. You are free. We will share any post where you tag us and use those hashtags, Phelan-McDermid life and PMSAD. But we just want to make these available to you if you would like to share them. Okay, so now we're going to have to see if this video is going to play. New for 2024, we have this Advocacy Empowerment Program, which is something that we are excited about. Let me see if this little video is going to play. And someone tell me if you can't hear the audio.
Hello, my name is Joanna Kent, and I am the parent of a child with Phelan-McDermid syndrome. I'm excited to collaborate with CureSHANK to offer family, friends, and professionals the opportunity to hone their advocacy skills for this 6-month program. We will offer a chance to meet once a month for a mix of presentations and collaboration to help empower each person to find their advocacy style. The goal of this program is that each person will leave feeling more confident in their basic understanding of government, federal to local. We will dive into the style of advocacy and how to help utilize their potential and keep burnout at bay. There will be a deeper dive into the who, what, where, when, and how of an ask. Learning about resources and potential allies is vital to many successful advocates. But the most critical part of advocacy is doing it. The design of this program will be that even after the end of the monthly meetings, there will continue to be open communication and resources for each cohort to collaborate. Please apply via the link provided and feel free to share with anyone you think would be interested. Applications will be reviewed and all applicants will be contacted to let them know if they will be part of the piloting of this program. Thank you, and I look forward to working with you.
All right, so you saw the details there. Obviously, with this being on a webinar, you don't have the link to sign up, but we have been, or we will be putting that out there. And it was also in our newsletter that we sent out, which I'm about to talk about in one minute. Joanna is about the most tenacious advocate I've ever seen. And we wanted to explain that we're starting this program because not only is it going to help, is it something that if you're, wanting to advocate for your child, is it going to help you personally, but it's also something that's really valuable for CureSHANK and for the entire Phelan-McDermid syndrome community, because Caregiver advocates are a really powerful addition to certain kinds of legislative advocacy efforts that are directly related to our research, to the science that we're trying to do. I'll just give you a couple of examples. For example, like there is the idea that maybe having a placebo is not always it is not the best thing to be included in a clinical trial where, you know, you're asking somebody to try like, you know, a very invasive therapy, right? That might be like going straight into your brain. And so that is there's the idea that maybe people need to say, hey, like, we shouldn't have to necessarily always meet that requirement. And what you would have to do is hear from patient advocates who are going to be explaining why that is such a, you know, a crucial issue. Another idea would be that getting science funding for epilepsy and autism, for example, which always is going to help us. But it's not, you know, directly about SHANK3, but it's something that can help us. And then you're trying to help advocate to get federal or state resources. You can also, sometimes it's letter writing, sometimes it's a testimonial like Geraldine did earlier this year for Project Baby Dillo, which is about doing genetic testing for newborns. So we're hoping that we can find some parent advocates who can benefit from it personally, and then also be able to maybe be a voice that can help for the science as well. Real briefly, I wanted to talk about our newsletter. If you did not receive it, you can subscribe at CureSHANK.org, and we are hopefully going to be sending these out a little bit more often and giving you more updates. I just wanted to make sure that if you thought you were signed up for updates and you haven't received it, then double check and sign up on our website. I wanted to mention we have some upcoming fundraisers. I see that. Oh, sorry. Okay, I thought Geraldine wanted to add something. Okay, we will, and we can try to get to a question in just a minute. Okay. So for Giving Tuesday, like every other nonprofit, we're trying to do some fundraising. So if you're thinking about where you might want to give some funds for Giving Tuesday, think about CureSHANK. Also, you know, remember that lots of people, you know, lots of employers match. So, you know, don't forget that. It's a way to double what you're contributing. We're also really excited that the Rotary Club of Sugar Land, which is right by Houston, Texas, where I am, and not far from Geraldine, is going to be, every year they have a 5K where they raise money for some organization. And next year in February, they're going to be raising money for CureSHANK. And so if you are anywhere near Houston, Texas, or can get there, that we would love to have you participate, and we'll be sending more information about that. And of course, if you would like to help do a fundraiser, that might be something that will be on the calendar for 2024 too. So please always contact us at connect@cureshank.org. Finally, just a couple things. We are on all of this social media right here. We have a public page and also we have a public group that you can join. If you haven't already, if you click on, you can't really see it under there under the arrow, but it says following. If you designate over here, that is going to basically mean that you always get our notifications in your feed instead of the default, which is sometimes. It's really hard for pages to surface in people's news feeds. So that is an important thing to do. Like I said, sign up for our email list, share and inform your friends when there are webinars going on, when there's other stuff happening. You know, you can always help to spread the word. And if you would like to do more to help us with communications, fundraising, etc., you can reach out to Talia, Talya, at CureSHANK.org, or if you can't remember the spelling, connect@CureSHANK.org. Okay, we have 3 minutes, so let me just see if I know we have a question. Did you guys want me to read the question? Okay, so the question here is, will there be any opportunity to use AAC communication progress as an outcome measure as part of the ORCA project? And I think Geraldine can speak to that.
Yes, the answer is yes. The ORCA captures more than just like spoken communication. It will include AAC, kind of nonverbal gestures, and even receptive language. So it's pretty comprehensive.
That is great. I don't see any other questions right now, and we wanted to respect everybody's time. I'm sorry if the presentation seemed a little bit hurried, but we just wanted to make sure to get through all of the information, and I think that we have done that. So does anybody have any final thoughts before we sign off?
There was a question about what is AAC, and it means like assistive and augmentative communication. That's typically what we think about as like devices, speech output devices, but it can also include things like PECS cards, like kind of just traditional, where you point at pictures to communicate. So it can be anything really that helps individuals communicate if they don't have spoken language.
And let me see if we have any other. I don't think we have any. Oh, wait, there's another. Oh, somebody just thanked us for what we're doing. I thought there's another question. Thank you very much, Catherine. All right. Well, I think that we will let everybody go right on time. We really appreciate you joining. And if you're watching this as a recording, we thank you so much for your support, and we will see you next time.